Hello. Today we're going to be talking about and working through the homework pieces for Chapter 9. Like Chapter 8, Chapter 9 is very technical and has a lot of very specific do it this way or else kind of things. And so I want to set you up for success and so that I can show you what you need to do. And if you follow these directions, woohoo! Um, like the homework one for Chapter 8, for Chapter 9, I'll go through what we're going to do in each section, and you can pause me and then write down the number, come back to that next time. At least that's my intent for this. Okay, so I'm on page 290, and this is exercise 9.1, and it says, for each of the following statements, identify the subject and predicate terms and the name of the form. Universal affirmative, universal negative, particular affirmative or particular negative. Also state the traditional letter designation, A, E, I, O. Okay, so we're going to do number one. So this is 9.1, number one. Number one says, no scientists are Baptists. Really hard to believe, but okay. Okay, that's my premise. So I have all the pieces here, right? I'm supposed to identify the subject and predicate terms, okay? So scientists are my subject and Baptists are my predicate. I have my no R, okay? So I'm going to, okay, so this is my subject, this is my predicate. No scientists are Baptists. This is a universal negative. Also known as E. Okay, so that's what I have to do for that first one. Not a big deal. Okay, now some of these are going to be a little bit interesting. Let's see, did they do that already? No, okay, never mind. Should be straightforward. The other piece here, going to my homework, I missed a spot. Yep, there it is. 9.2, 9.3 are also part of the 9A sections. So I'm going to look here, and again, translate each of the following statements into standard categorical form and indicate the form is A-E-I-O. Okay? So if I have number 1, 9.2, number 1, it says all Giants fans are fanatical. And because we're looking at nouns, we would have to put here folks, people, whatever. Okay, so you have to have a noun there. So I'm looking at this one, and like we did last time, we're going to look at, okay, so we have Giants fans are my subject, and fanatical folks are my predicate. So my form is all S R P, and that's an A. Okay, not too horrible. 9.3 says follow the same instructions as 9.2. So you get an extra. 9.3. Let's do number 2. Okay. So number 2 says any earthquake is a potential disaster. Okay. I need to translate that because I need Any isn't one of my things. Yes, okay. One page back on 295, there is a further thought thing. This is let us count the ways. And it takes things that don't look like standard form and tells you which form they would be. Okay, like only celebrities are spoiled brats. This is an all SRP thing. All celebrities are spoiled brats. Only. Keep that in mind. So I'm looking at any. Okay, and I'm finding it under the A statement, all SRP. So I can say all earthquakes are potential disasters. Okay, we put it in standard form, and then we're going to put it in real standard form, all SRP. And again, it's an A statement. Okay, not too hard. Remember that list on page 295 makes your life so much easier. Okay. And that's the end of 9A. Okay, so I'm going to go on to 9B. 9B is going to use the 4 basic categorical statements. You have a little box on page 300. Please remember this above all else when you're working with Venn diagrams. They always look the same. So all SRP always looks the same. No SRP always looks the same. Some SRP, the X goes in the middle. Some SR not P, the X goes in the bigger part of the, and we're going to talk about that a little bit, but don't make stuff up. Oh, it looks better this way. No. These are the rules, and this is how it works. If you do it some other way, it doesn't work. Okay, so make sure that you're keeping that running around your head. Okay, so I'm going to look at exercise 9.4 on page 302. Yes, I'm going to make these guys go quick because I need space. I wasn't sure. Okay. In 9.4, it says construct Venn diagrams for each of the following statements. Specify both the subject and the predicate terms. If necessary, translate the statement into standard form before diagramming. A, E, I, or O. Okay? So I'm going to put a little cheat sheet over here. So, like I said, they're the same way all the time. That's your basic drawing. Okay? It needs to have both circles with the overlap and the S and P, just like that, all the time. All the time, all the time, all the time. Now, I will tell you, drawing them on the computer is a real challenge. If you can't make the different shaded things obvious with the X where you need it to be, then you're going to need to draw them by hand, which is what I do. So, okay, so A, all SRP, always looks like this. That's it. Even if it doesn't make sense to you today, this is the make your curtsy, or it's just how it is, right? Okay, so the E, again, same thing. Those guys, S and P, no SRP. That center eyeball portion is colored in. Always, 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 always. That's how it goes. I, some SRP. You have the X in the middle. Okay. And the O portion, same two guys. Sorry, everything's a guy. I try not to do that, but that's how it just works. Some S are not P has the X over here in the S bubble. So that's the way they look all the time, every time, no exceptions. Don't make stuff up. Okay, so 9.4 says do all the things. Let's look at number 4. So we're going to go 9.4, number 4. And our ta-da is some birds are flightless. Okay, now we know, we need a noun here, some birds are flightless poultry. Okay, so my subject is birds, my predicate is flightless poultry. So my standard is some SRP. And I go over here, it's an I statement, and it looks like this. SP, some SRP, and that's it. Okay? Not horrible, except for drawing it on a computer. That can be problematic. Okay. For exercise 9.5, we're looking at equivalency. Even though these are two different sentences, are they graphed the same way? If they are, they're equivalent. If they're not, they're not. Okay? So we're going to look at number 1, because I just want to do one to show. Okay, number 1 says no PRS and no SRP. Okay, so you have to draw two different sets. Okay, so no PRS. I'm doing this one. No. I'm a horrible drawer. So no PRS. So it's this middle portion here, right? Same idea. And then this one, I should have done it in a different color, but it's okay. You get the point. SP. No SRP. So these guys are equivalent. Okay? Equal with them over it. Or you just say yes. Equivalent. Okay? Not too horrible. I'm going to have you do quite a few of these for the homework because I want you to practice and make sure that you get those. So that's 9B. 9C. And there was much rejoicing. I'm going to make this go away. So, again, I need space. So even when we're talking about the syllogism, okay, you have a whole bunch of examples and things. Categorical syllogisms are 3 categorical statements, 2 premises, and a conclusion. Remember, with some of these, and with some of the stuff we'll do a little bit later on, you have to look sometimes for those indicator words and make sure that you're calling the conclusion what really is the conclusion, because the conclusion doesn't always come last. Remember from other arguments and things? Okay, so 9.6 says label the minor term, major term, middle term, translate the syllogism into symbolic form, uses S and P and M to represent the terms. Okay, so, sorry, I have to do some things. So where are you? Okay, so when we have these terms, I'm going to just make me a little cheat sheet here. S is my subject. P, which is the minor term. P is the predicate term. It's also called the major term. And M is the middle. Okay? The M should only ever be in the premises. Okay? So keep that in mind as well. Do what you do. Okay. So when I'm looking at these questions here in 9.6, I'm going to look at number 1. So 9.6, number 1. Okay, it's going to take me a minute to get this up here. So no apples or vegetables. Some plants are vegetables. So some plants are not apples. Okay, I'll buy that. Now, when we were doing the truth tables and taking apart the sentences and all of that, I would tell you to start at the beginning and label your premises and all that kind of fun stuff. Well, for Venn diagrams, you start with a conclusion. You start with a conclusion, okay? So my first piece here is plants. Okay, that's my S. And then I go through in the other places and I look for plants and I label it S. Okay? And again, with the conclusion, my predicate piece is apples. Okay? So then I'm looking here. Apples. P. Okay? This is why I write my things out, because I have to look at things. I have to look at them funny. Okay, so my middle term is vegetables. It only shows up in the two premises, doesn't show up in the conclusion. So my S and P's, everything matches. We're good. Okay, so then I can write my argument, which is no P RM, some S RM, so some S are P, are not P, sorry. Okay. Now comes the pseudo-interesting difficult part. Okay, so when we draw these, we draw them the same way all the time, like those guys. Okay, so I draw my S and P like I draw all my other S and P's. And then for the M, I'm going to put it up here on top. Make sure it makes that. Okay, that's your M. And this is how I want them labeled. I don't want you to label these apples, plants, and vegetables. Okay, S, P, and M, because that's what we're working with. Variables stand in for those nouns. Okay, get used to it. It's not a big deal. Okay, so the first thing we do is we graph any of the absolute statements. So all or no gets drafted first, and then after that we do the sums. So no P or M. So I'm going to ignore my S. No P or M. And so it's an E statement like that. And I'm going to color in the whole guy here. Okay. Even that little cross here that's partly S doesn't matter. We're talking about M and P, and that's it right now. Okay. I make a mark so I know what I did. Okay. My other one, some S are M. So that time I'm going to ignore my P bubble over here. Some S are M. So we're not sure where in that eyeball section this goes. So I'm going to put it on the line so I don't know exactly where it is. Okay. Now that's all we graph. We only graph the premises. We look at what we've graphed, sorry. And we want to say, okay, my conclusion is, so some S are not P. can I say that? Well, no. Now, if I had put my X way up here, yeah, I could say that. So sometimes it depends upon how you drew it. Here, because I can't say it, I have to say it's invalid. Okay? Indeterminate, really, but invalid because I can't say some S or not P from what I've drawn. Everybody see that, I hope? Not horrible. Oh, sorry. So this is 9.6, number 1. This is 9.7, number 1. I forgot that. That's how he did that one. So they took them apart. So set it up, and then in 9.7, write it out. Now, you can choose to do 9.6 and 9.7 at the same time, so you have it, but it's up to you, however you want to do it. 9.8 is put it all together, which is kind of funny. 9.8. So 9.8 translate each of the following arguments into categorical syllogistic form, major premise, minor premise, conclusion. Symbolize the argument using conventional SPM variables and draw a Venn diagram to test its validity. Okay. When we look at number 1, remember I told you some of these are going to get tricky because they're going to put an indicator word in there. Well, number 1, we have a premise indicator word for. For all houses are architectural structures and some houses are non-traditional designs. So our conclusion is actually the first statement. Okay, so keep that in mind. So I'm going to do like this. So I have some architectural structures are non-traditional designs. We'll get there. So this is the conclusion. And then we have all houses are architectural structures and some houses are non-traditional designs. Okay, not too horrible, maybe a little horrible. Okay, so, okay, I was going to do it that way, but that's okay. So I have, my conclusion is here, so I'm going to go architectural structures is my S, and I'm going to go here, that's an S. I'm going to go non-traditional designs are my P. And houses are my middle term. And again, they only show up in the P's. Okay, so now I have to put it in normal form, okay? So I have some M are P, and then all M are S, so some S are P. Okay? That's my argument. So now I gotta do my circles, and I think this blue is gonna die on me, so I'm gonna make it purple. I like purple. And it's nice and bright. Okay, so again, draw your two, draw S and P, put M on top, and then I'm gonna go here. Even though it's the minor term, it's the universal, and so I'm gonna do it first. So all M are S. So I'm going to ignore P over here. So my all is going to go here. Okay, it's that whole bubble, even that little bit of the P there, that isn't S. And then some M are P. Okay, some M are P. I can't put it where I've already marked out, so I have to put it here. Okay, so M and P. Okay, so can I say some S are P? Yes, I can. Yay, we have valid. Okay, so remember, draw your diagram, do your translation, draw your diagram, and then only plot the premises. Once you've plotted the premises, if you can say the conclusion from what's there, it's valid. If you can't say what's there is the same as the conclusion, then it's invalid. If it's kind of wishy-washy, you can't make a decision, invalid. Okay? So we have to be careful with the valids. That's just how that works. Okay? That's the end of the mess for 9C. We're going to move on to 9D. So I'm going to erase a bunch of stuff. Well, pretty much all the stuff. I like the square of opposition. It sounds like it's a torch device, but it's not really. It makes your life a little bit easier when you're playing with Venn diagrams. And so you need to be careful and read the directions, especially on things like the test, so you know how I want you to do something. If I tell you to use the square of opposition, use the square of opposition. If I tell you to use two Venn diagrams, use two Venn diagrams. It's not that hard. Okay, so in exercise 9.9, okay, oh, before I get there, let me do this over here. So the square of opposition, you have some rules. Hold on. There we go. I thought so, but I didn't want to do it wrong and then have to do it again. That would be very confusing. So we have these, A and E, are contraries, okay? They can't both be true, which if you think about the statement that they're making, A is all SRP and E is no SRP, so they're diametrically opposed. They can't have the same answer. They can't both be false. I mean, sorry, not both true. Now, the big X in the middle applies to the counter corners. These are contradictories, not the same value. Okay, now these guys down here are subcontraries, because they're on the bottom, and they can't both be false. Okay, now that sounds very interesting and easy and no big deal, right? They have their things. So, but we know if our first statement is an A statement. So I'm just going to give you an example here and then we'll go play with that stuff. So if my first statement is all SRP, the first statement that you're given is always true. Okay, it's your given. It's always true. So if the second statement is some S are not P, that's an O. Okay, now, so I start with my A, he's true. I go down here to O, so O has to be false, right? Because they're contradictories that can't be the same thing. So you either draw it like that, or you say A statements and O statements cannot have the same value. Because they're contradictories. When you do this explanation, I think I spelled that right. Okay. When you do this explanation, you have to use the language. Contradictories, contraries, subcontraries, okay? So that's kind of the general thing. So let's go over here and look at 9.9. So number 1, did I just do that? No, I did not. Okay. So 9.9, changing colors on me, sorry. Number 1 says no SRP is my first one. Sorry. And the second one is some S are not P. Okay. Now, if you go on the internet and you get a copy of the square of opposition, be aware that it goes much further than this sometimes. This is what we're using. It's in the book. This is what we're using. This is what we're using. So don't mess with other things. Okay. Go with that. So if I have some S are not P, okay, so my square would look like this, well, sort of square. I never end up at the same place. A, E, I, O. So I'm starting here, right, with E. Well, I can't go directly down. I have to go across, which means this is false. And then I have to go this way. So they can't both be false. So this one is true, and that's my answer. Okay, that's all I have to have. Now I can, if I want to write it out, and I guess some people like to write it out. So if E, not if, sorry, since E is true, then I has to be false because they're contradictories. And, okay, then O has to be true because they are subcontraries. Okay? Not too horrible. Not too horrible at all. Okay? And you'll have a few of those. Now, in 9.10, we are looking at 3 different sections. Turn the page, scroll down, you know, that kind of thing. And what we're going to do here for 9.10, state its converse and indicate whether the 2 statements are equivalent. So in a conversion, okay, I know I told you this in the lecture, right? In a conversion, I and E are equivalent. Okay, that means A and O are not equivalent. So if I'm going to do a conversion, some men are students is my statement. Okay, and all this conversion does is to change the position of the subject and the predicate terms. Leave them alone. Don't change them, positive, negative, anything else. Just switch them. Okay, so my conversion is some students are men. And since this is an I statement, it is equivalent. No big deal, right? And this is part 1. Part 2, turn the page. asks, write the obverse of each of these. Now with an obverse, everybody is equivalent. A, E, I, O, they're all equivalent, okay? So if I'm looking at number 1, some men are morons. Sorry, guys. Okay. To back up a minute here. For the subversion, you can see, sorry, for the obversion over here on 313, the I, the obverse is, so this is the everything but class, is a complement of the first one. So you replace the predicate term with its complement and then switch the statement from positive to negative or negative to positive. Okay, so some men are morons ends up some men are not non-morons. Okay, some men are not non-morons. And it's equivalent, because they all are, if you do it right. Okay, so you're saying some men are morons, some men are not morons, right? Or non-morons, and then you flip it. Some men are not non-morons, and that's what you get. For part 3, like I said, I say with no one. For each of the following statements, derive whatever's indicated and determine if the two are equivalent. Okay, so number 1 says no SRP, and we're supposed to give the converse. So conversion is flip my subject and predicate, so I end up with no P RS. And because that's an E statement, it's equivalent. Okay? So not horrible, just, a little bit of practice and keep it in your head. Make sure that you are doing the right thing, that you know that you can do any of these with any of, you can do an obversion, a conversion, and a contraposition with any of the 4 statements. It's just that for a conversion, only I and E, will be equivalent, and for the contraposition, only A and O. Everybody's equivalent in obversion. Okay? Not too horrible. Okay, I think that's it for chapter 9. I hope this is helpful. Again, mark your points, mark your minutes and such, and see where things are. Excuse me. And if you have questions, further questions, let me know. You know how to get a hold of me. You have my email.